Alright, how are we doing this fine day? Okay, I don't usually do this. I don't usually upload on YouTube, first off, but I also don't really do, post commentary of Pokemon battles. It's not really a thing that I've done before. But this game I had against Teclis, I think is how you pronounce their name, was absolutely hilarious. It wasn't like that at the time, but it's really funny in hindsight. It wasn't great to play, but it was very very funny at the time. And I wanted someone to see the nonsense that goes on in this game. So let's get into the replay. So I go ahead, I lead off with my Zap, they lead off with their Hippowdon, and I see this and I'm thinking, okay, so that tells me this is a stall team, so it's probably got, like the Clef, the Scarm, the Lottie, Jirachi, and then like filler, right? So that's what I'm thinking first off. I don't have anything to touch this with. I'm T-Bolt, Heat Wave, U-Turn, Roost. So this Zapdos can match up pretty well into things like Empoleon lead, Metagross lead. Against Azelf, I'll U-turn and then go into my Scarf Jirachi, who can also U-turn and then can play from there. Against Stall, this doesn't do great against most Stall leads. I like to hard switch it out against like Scarftar and then just U-turn on Hippowdon. But in general, in the back, I have a Metagross with Boom. I have a Scarf, or a Specs Lottie rather, with Trick. I have a heavily invested Mixed Swampert with 4 attacks. And I have a Rain Dance Kingdra. So I have a whole lot of stuff that can hit Stall really hard. Not too worried about that. The only guys that don't match up great into Stall really are the Zapdos and my Scarf Jirachi. So I figure, alright, no big deal with Hippowdon being the lead. I'll just U-turn out and send out my Swampert and go from there. So they get up their rocks. I'm like, alright, yeah, that was going to happen basically no matter what because of the lead matchup. I throw off a Hydro here. I see this does 36%, right? And I'm like, okay, that's definitely Spadef. So they get up a Spike as I go for another Hydro. Thankfully it hits. And here I go for the Focus Punch because I figure they're Spadef. If they Roost, they'll die. But they actually end up going to their Clef and taking 96 from that. So go Ice Beam here on the Protect, but just to try to knock them out. So I see the Protect, I'm like, okay, they're probably Wish. And I go for an Earthquake here. Now, if I had it to do over again, I would have gone for Ice Beam that turn, just for the chip on Rotom. I wasn't sure. The reason that I went for EQ is because I wasn't sure that Ice Beam would kill Clef from 16%. I wasn't sure. That is a calc. That is on me. That is a calc that I should have known. But I was scared that since I'm not too invested, I was scared that Max Spadef Calm might live from there. Not too big of a play that mattered, I don't think, but small nitpick from myself from the future. So I'm actually going to stay in here and let Swampert take a burn, which is also something I don't know if I agree with, because at this point in my game plan when I saw this Rotom was I was like, alright, I'm going to let Swampert get burned because he's mostly going to be attacking with special attacks, now that, Clef is in a position where it won't be able to recover against anyone on my team now. I don't need Focus Punch anymore. And I'm going to stay in, click Hydro over and over, and force a rest to try to get some momentum. That's what my thought process was. Looking back at it, I think what I probably should have done was actually go over into Kingdra to absorb the Will-O-Wisp, because my Kingdra is Lumberry, and at that point I could have either Rain Danced or Dracoed or Hydro Pumped or whatever I wanted to do. I don't have any physical attacks on my Kingdra. It's Rain Dance, Dual Stabs, and HP Grass. So that definitely could have been an alternative play, but again, I don't think my choice of who I let take the burn here ended up mattering too much in the long term. Regardless though, they're going to Shadow Ball here as I throw off another Hydro Pump, once again to try to force that rest. Astounding that all of my Hydros have been hitting this game. But yeah, like I said, I know that rest is coming out, so I use that as a free opportunity to get my Latias in. Now here, as I mentioned, this is Specs, and I figure, okay, these last two are probably Jirachi here and Latias, right? So I'm like, alright, I don't really want Jirachi coming in for free, but at the same time, they're playing Stall, so they probably see this, they know I'm Specs, and they know I want to go for that trick to try to cripple somebody. And if I'm them, I would definitely send in my 16% Clef, because like I said, that thing's not recovering against anybody on my team, and if I waste my trick on it, then that means I won't be able to cripple another mon later. So I go for Draco here, I go for Draco here, expecting the Clef to come in, and it does, and it drops. Looking back at it, I would have probably liked to go for Surf there. Not a huge difference. Not a huge difference, but if Jirachi came in, it was guaranteed as opposed to 90% accurate on that. And then Rotom, if Rotom stayed in, it still would have done a lot to that. Then again, Draco would just one-shot Rotom, so I think either one was a fine play there. Like I think attacking instead of tricking was the important part of that turn. So definitely, I'm okay with having made that play. Now, unfortunately, that is going to give Skarmory a free roost because I can't kill it for -2. So there's that. I go for Heat Wave on this turn, only because I figure there's no way that this stays in, but I don't want to U-turn just on the off chance that they're crazy. So I want to do something that will hit the Skarmory if it stays in, and then also cover the potential Hippo switch in, and then also cover a potential Rotom switch in. So I go for Heat Wave because that hits everybody. Like I said, that dissuades Rachi from coming in as well. And if Lade comes in, I'm not too worried because I'm just going to U-turn on that right after and get out of there. So I actually go for Heat Wave here, and I end up burning on the first turn, so that's pretty awesome. That's going to come in very handy later, but I'm going to pay for that little bit of hacks pretty hard going forward, you'll see. But regardless, I U-turn here on the Force Slack Off, and now my Lade's in, and I'm able to fire off a trick. I don't care who comes in on this. It can be Jirachi. That would actually be awesome if Jirachi had come in. It could be, Latias. I wouldn't go Latias if I'm them, but if they were predicting a Surf, that could happen. But yeah, I don't care who gets tricked here. I'm glad that it is the Hippo, as they're going to specs themselves into Aurora. And I am just going to go for Hydro Pump. Missed my first one in the game. I don't think that mattered too much, because that was probably going to do like 30% to this Jirachi, and like it was going to heal it back up with leftovers anyway. Not really concerned about that miss. I was just throwing off an attack to throw off an attack. They protect here on my Earthquake, and I'm thinking, okay, so this is probably Wish Protect, Iron Head, Body Slam, and I actually end up trying to throw Swampert away here because, he's at 26%, he's burned. I figure no real point in trying to keep him around. If I switch out, then I'm risking someone else either getting paralyzed or taking chip in the service of preserving like a red health Swampert, so I was like, that's not really worth it. Go for EQ on the off chance I break through the flinch and get some chip, which I do, which is nice, and that reveals them to be a very physically defensive Jirachi, which is cool. I go ahead over into my Zap on this turn, and I Roost here because I figure if I'm them, I would protect to get a little bit more leftovers before having to react to my Heat Wave, my T-Bolt, whatever. I do go for that Heat Wave, just because that would do the most damage to everybody, actually, because nobody on this team really loves coming into Heat Wave. Rotom gets chipped, Skarmory dies, Hippowdon is annoyed now that it's got specs, and then Jirachi has a bad time. And then, again, what I'm presuming to be a Lottie in the back here can come in, but I'm just going to U-turn out to one of my steals after anyway, so I don't really care about that. But I missed that Heat Wave. Now keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Count those up. I missed one Heat Wave right there, but that's not the beginning. No. Alright? That makes up for the burn, I will say. That miss makes up for the burn, but that's not all. I had another Heat Wave here to see what they lock themselves into, as they lock themselves into Slack. Now, what this tells me is that because I have 24 Thunderbolts and they only have 16 Slacks, I can actually go for T-Bolt safely here, because they will have to switch out before I do. I figure I'll need those Heat Waves just because it's so good in this matchup. I'll need those Heat Waves later for things like Rotom and Jirachi. And so I just repeatedly Thunderbolt as they're forced to slack off by the burn. I actually got a crit Heat Wave right there because I thought that there was a potential switch coming in to Rotom there, and I wanted to try to chip that. Because I didn't know the Rotom spread at the time, but if they didn't have any Spadef, then 3 Heat Waves had a chance with my spread to 3 at KO. So I was like, alright, And they haven't burned any sleep turns, which meant that I would be able to kill them before they woke back up. Unfortunately, I was wrong on that turn, but not a huge deal. I do get that crit, but that doesn't end up mattering because it still does less than a slack off. or it does very marginally more than a slack off. So I'm going back to T-bolting here, as they're going back to slacking. I only have 10 slacks left. And yeah, a heat wave here as Latias comes in, just again thinking that there's potential that Rotom coming in, and I don't really want it to get in without taking big chip on one of its sleep turns. So I end up U-turn right after, which I'm 281 speed on this zap, so that tells me this is a very slow defensive Lati. And defensive Latis are pretty slow in general, but this one's sub 100 speed EVs. It's 96 at most, because it got outsped by my zap. So I U-turn Heat Wave, do a decent amount of chip, and I'm going to be able to bring in my Metagross on the Ice Beam. Fortunately, don't get frozen, and I'm finally on turn 27 going to be able to get up my damn Stealth Rock, which is great. So that Stealth Rock is going to make it so that Lati has a harder time switching to Zapdos. It's going to make it so that Rotom has a harder time coming in also to Zapdos, and it's going to make it so that Skarmory is actually pressured by a lot of my guys in the back just by coming in, even if I don't necessarily land a move on it. So that's actually really, really cool. I don't want to risk going Zap here just to get Whirlwinded out and take Stealth Rock for nothing. So I actually go for Mash on the Skarm, knowing that the Skarm is specially defensive rather from its earlier interactions with Swampert. Meteor Mash, if I get the boost into Explosion, will actually kill the Skarm, and that'll be great if I can get that done. That'll be amazing for my Kingdra, actually, because because I can't kill it in one as Kingdra without Rain, and then it'll also be great for my Jirachi. Jirachi's not going to be doing a whole hell of a lot in this game anyway, because like they have their own Jirachi that's physically defensive, and a Rotom, and a Hippowdon. Does okay against the Hippowdon because of the burn, but having this out of the way would still be nice. So I'm going to go for one Meteor Mash here, and I end up missing. Like I said, that Meteor Mash was probably going to do like 10%, or it was going to do like 10%, so like that didn't really end up mattering that much. But they're going to get their spike up there. So I go over into my Zap, get Whirlwinded out, and I'm like, alright, well, that kind of sucks. I U-turn right back out into my Zap as Jirachi gets dragged out, and I get Whirlwinded out again, going to Kingdra. And at this point, I set up the Rain just to get that sand off the field, because that's constantly chipping 3 of my guys, and it's kind of annoying. It's not chipping anybody that they've got, or at least not anybody that not any of the guys that are really annoying me, because Lati's kind of pressured right now because it doesn't have a great time switching into any of my guys, and then Rotom's asleep, you know, so Rotom's not a huge threat at this point either. So I set up the Rain just to get the sand out the way. Now I figure if they try to set up a second spike, then that's great. I can Hydro Pump right after, put a dent in something, and go from there. This comes in, so I decided to just go for a T-Punch this turn, as I figure I'm going to get phased anyway, and I do. So I keep that chip, and that's actually really nice, because now I get to just fire off a Rain-boosted Hydro Pump from my Kingdra. And this ends up coming in, Hippo ends up coming in as I miss a Hydro Pump, which is unfortunate. But I'm able to land the next one, knock it out anyway, so not too big of a deal. All that really did was clear the sand out, which is kind of annoying. Now here, they Body Slam, revealing that they're actually faster than me, which, if their Lati is as slow as I think it is, that makes sense for this to be a little bit faster. But they go ahead and Body Slam me, which can't kill me. I will die to Sandstorm here, but I set up the Rain Dance, just so that my Hydro Pumps are, once again, you know, nice and powerful, and then also to get that damn sand out of the way, because that joint's annoying. So they protect on one Hydro, but they don't dodge the next, and that does a big 70%. Kingdra goes down, but Jirachi is weakened enough at this point that it's not really a threat, and Lati can come in and start firing off some Rain-boosted Surfs of her own. So even without specs, thanks to the Rain, Surf will kill at this range, which is awesome. You know, Lati comes in. Like I said, I know that's very slow. My Lati is 308, so I can definitely outspeed. And a big part of me wanted to go for Surf right here. I really wanted to go for Surf, but I didn't want to potentially get paralyzed or ice beamed by their own Lati if they stayed in. I didn't want to overpredict, basically. If I'd gone for 2 surfs here, actually, I don't even know if it would have knocked this out, or like surf into Draco, I guess, would have knocked this out. But yeah, just given how well Lottie matches up against the rest of this team with Jirachi down, kills Lottie in one, pressures Skarm really nicely, and pressures Rotom really nicely, I figured there's no reason for me to risk it, so I just stay in, and I go, or I was going to stay in either way, but I just go for a Draco Meteor, as opposed to a Surf. And that damage actually shows me that, yeah, that probably wouldn't have killed, even with the Surf, but, okay, whatever. So, here, we are going to go ahead and get our Metagross dragged back out. I Meteor Mash here again, trying to get that attack raise so that I can kill it with a boom. And I do end up getting the raise, and they get the roost off. Now at this point, they could go into their Rotom, but just based on the way Teclis has been playing right now, I don't think they're going to do that, and I think they're going to get greedy to try to either go for that third spike or to whirlwind me out here. Because like they might also think I don't have Boom. They might think I'm like Meteor Mash T-Punch EQ or something. I think Boomless Metagross is like really bad, but I have seen some people use it, so they may have been thinking that I could have been Boomless. But either way, just based on the way they were playing, I did not think, given that Skarm was in front of me, I did not think that they were going to be going to Rotom. So I decide, pull the trigger, I blow up the Skarmory, and I get it right, so that's nice. If I'd ended up booming my Metagross into this Rotom, that would have been really, really bad, and I probably would have lost the game right there if that was the case. But I end up getting the 50-50 right and blowing up the Skarm, which is nice. As on the double down, I'm going to go over into my Zap, only because, it's at 25% after the rocks, but it's going to be able to get a roost off versus everybody on the team with no issues. So, get the roost off as they burn a sleep turn, and they end up sleep talking rest, which, bad roll, but whatever. And thanks to Kingdra, back a few turns ago, clearing out the rain the sand a second time, I'm actually going to be healing in sand with both my Lottie, who I stole leftovers from the Hippo from, and with my Zap. Now, in hindsight, actually, clearing out the sand might have hurt me a lot against this Rotom, but you'll see why later. For now, I just go for some Heat Waves, and you see that that's 34%. That's a 3-hit KO in sand. But without sand, they have leftovers recovery, so that is not a 3-hit KO outside of sand. So I'm actually going to have a very hard time breaking through this without, just because, like, the only move that I had that does significant damage is going to be that Draco Meteor, or, like, a Heat Wave crit. But Draco drops my special attack after, and without specs, it can't kill in one. So this Rotom is actually going to end up being a big thorn in my side for a while. But I'm going to Heat Wave again, do some big damage. They wake up, and they end up Wisping, and leftovers do heal them out of range for another Heat Wave. I end up getting a Min roll there, but it doesn't really end up mattering. They rest up, as, that's what Rotom does. So I'm like, alright, screw this, I'm going to U-turn over into my Lottie, and, try to weaken this with Surfs and Dracos. They end up pulling a Shadow Ball, which doesn't do a whole lot because I am a slightly bulk invested Lottie, but that's still kind of annoying. I drop a Draco just because it is in my favor for them to not pull another Shadow Ball, and that ends up knocking out the Jirachi, which is nice. Didn't really matter because Jirachi was like pretty much death fodder at that point anyway, but not having it on the field is cool. They end up pulling another rest from the Sleep Talk, and they're going to wake up this turn, which kind of sucks. So I go for a Roost as they Shadow Ball me. No Spadef drop. They'll get a few Spadef drops later. You'll see. This game is very interesting. So they end up getting a Spadef drop right there as I hit them with a Heat Wave. They heal some of it off with leftovers because I got rid of the damn sand. I'm gonna go ahead, land a Heat Wave over here to the left. Second Heat Wave that's missed this game, but I figure I got a burn. It's really not that big of a deal. I go for another one. That Heat Wave actually was probably a little bit ill-advised. I should have roosted right there. My logic was that, again, it's in my favor for them to not pull another Shadow Ball from rest and kill me. But even if they did, like, even if they did, or if they did pull Shadow Ball and my Zap went down, Latias wasn't guaranteed to kill with Surf plus Draco, so I still think that was kind of a bad play for me that I ended up getting rewarded for. But, you know, I ended up missing a Heat Wave. I ended up missing the third Heat Wave of the game on that turn anyway, as they pull Will-O-Wisp, so it doesn't end up really mattering that much, I guess. This turn I Heat Wave again, taking the same bad risk as I did last turn, as they pull Wisp again and let my Zapdos live. That turn, it was actually a little bit better. Yeah, that turn it was actually a little bit better, because if I died that turn, the Heat Wave chip would have stuck, at which point if Zap goes down, Lottie comes in, drops a Draco, this dies, Draco the Lottie, or Iron hit the Lottie, U-turn, whatever, and I win. But, you know, I'm going to end up missing a fourth Heat Wave here on this turn as they rest back up. Going to end up barely living the burn damage with 0.5% as I'm able to roost back up. So yeah, so my game plan at this point, basically, is I need to be able to stick some chip to this Rotom, let Zapdos die, and then Draco it. I'm going to end up missing the fifth Heat Wave on that turn as they pull another Wisp. And this is now 3 in a row, I think. Yeah, there's another, but I hit that one as they wake up and Wisp. I don't really know what that was trying to get. I'm guessing they thought maybe I would try to go over to Lottie, try to burn that. But I had no real reason, at least from my perspective, to go to Lottie, and my Jirachi doesn't have anything that can hurt this, except like trying to freeze it with Ice Punch, I guess. So, kind of an ill-advised Will-O-Wisp, I would say, from my opponent. Because if they were predicting... Well, I guess maybe they wanted to avoid me, avoid killing me so that they didn't have to risk a roll versus Lottie. In which case, that actually was kind of a decent play. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Either way, this fight is going to continue going on. At this point, I'm running very low on Heat Waves. I only have one left. And so I go for a T-Bolt there to try to get the para, as I don't. I'm going to roost back up, get some more health. Very nice boring stall where we got here. I actually had fun playing this part, with the exception of all the missed Heat Waves. That was what's really funny. I go for another T-Bolt to get some chip, and I end up missing this last Heat Wave here as they Shadow Ball me. Now, that last Heat Wave miss kind of sucked. I don't know that hitting it would have made a huge difference, but it was a moral L at that point for me. Because if I'd hit the Heat Wave, they probably would have been at, what, 50% and then 56-ish after leftovers. Hit me with a Shadow Ball, and then they would have rested again, and I'd have been in the same position, except now I don't have any Heat Waves. So, that Heat Wave miss didn't really matter, but let it be known I did miss 7 Heat Waves this game, okay? Okay, so they Shadow Ball me again, get another Spadef drop, so I'm like, alright, well, this sucks. I can't stay here forever now. But I end up deciding, you know, T-Bolt, if I T-Bolt here, either they rest and I'm able to roost back up and then switch to reset my Spadef, or I hit them with T-Bolt. Best case scenario, I para, but even if I don't, I get chip on them as they kill me with Shadow Ball, and then I can Draco, they'll be in Draco range for my Lottie, right? Right? So I drop a Draco, it does 71%, it lives on 1 health, and it may look like I have absolutely lost, but we're not done just yet. We're not just yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and recover, because I am, you know, Specs recover, because this set does really well against Stall. You trick off your Specs to something, and then it's really hard for Stall to kill you, especially if you clear out the rain or clear out the sand with Kingdra. Really hard for Stall to kill this when it's recovering constantly, because you can just recover off their chip. So I take the first sleep turn to go ahead and get some health back. They end up wisping me, which is annoying, but not a huge deal, I don't think. Go over into my Jirachi just to reset my Spatak, and U-turn back over into this. Got 4 Dracos left. I don't think that's the Draco count is going to end up impacting too much. Here I make an awesome play because they think that I'm going to actually attack on this turn and end up recovering on the free turn that they give me by resting off their 2%. So I surf here for some chip because I figured that I surfed there for some chip because I figured that given that they're asleep for 2 turns, now I should win unless they pull double Shadow Ball, because I should be able to surf, do about 30, and then Draco for the kill. At least, that's what I would think. And then if at any point they sack Lottie, they have to come back in, I can sack Jirachi to force a rest and then do the same thing. So at this point I'm thinking I'm in a winning position. No big deal, I just gotta play it out. And I surf again, as they pull a rest on their Sleep Talk, and they're at 55%, and now at this point Draco will kill them, so they sack their Lottie, and I'm like, alright, that's fine, because like I said, I can just put them back in this loop again a few turns down the road, and we can make it happen. But I decide that what the play actually is that I can Draco here, because Draco will do about 35%. If they rest, that's great. I can go over to Jirachi, do the same thing, U-turn, and then put him back in a Surf Draco loop to be able to kill them from rest, from the turns they give me from them resting, right? If Draco does 35%, which it would have roughly 35% without a crit, and they kill me with Shadow Ball here, which isn't even guaranteed from 46, it's a roll, but if they kill me with Shadow Ball here, then they'll only be at, what is that, 15? After leftovers, so then Jirachi comes in, Ice Punches, and I win. I do end up getting a crit on the final attack that ended up not benefiting me at all, but just to drive home how damn hacksy of a game that was, I get a nice crit to finish off the game. So I ended up losing this series, unfortunately, 2-1. This is only game 1, but this whole series, and especially this game, was so marred by hacks that I found it really funny. The other games, the hacks wasn't really as funny. It was mostly just like me critting them a lot and then them flinching me down with Jirachi a lot. But this game, I've never had a game where I missed 7 Heat Waves or 7 90s in general, right? Like 7 Dracos, 7 of any of that. So having that happen, where a lot of them mattered in a game against a stall matchup, was definitely got my heart beating, to say the least. But I personally think that was a really funny game, and if you watched all the way to the end, I appreciate it. You know, let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to drop a like if you enjoyed it. But otherwise, might do some more of this in the future. We'll see. Till then, have yourself a great one.